Hey all, welcome to ShareTreck. This is Raj here. Friends, we have had an ongoing relationship with a company called American Gene Technologies for our HIV channel, where a lot of people have found inspiration from their work on coming up with a functional cure for HIV. And for a short period of time, we were in a lull because there was some other activities that were going on in AGT that had to be resolved before we could proceed further. But recently, I had a very interesting chat with Jeff Galvin, the CEO of American Gene Technologies, and they have uncovered some really interesting data which makes it very, very positive that we'll have a functional cure very soon. Having said that, we already recorded a video on AGT 103 and its latest data and what it says and released it on our HIV channel. But today, friends, I'm looking at the investment channel, ShareTreck Genomics. And I think this is the right time for us to have a quick chat with Jeff Galvin and understand what American Gene Technologies is doing, how far it has reached. And this could be a good opportunity to get in at the ground floor. Of course, there are regulations and other things. We'll talk about those disclaimers and others at the end of the video. But first, let me welcome our guest, Jeff Galvin. Hi, Jeff.
Hey Raj, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Great. Yeah, well, I'm a little bit in a food coma because yesterday was Thanksgiving in the United States.
Yes.
So I'm still feeling a very full belly. But besides that, I'm feeling great.
Yeah, and I think this would be the right time to have a slightly lengthy interview and talk to our investment audience. So today, Jeff, usually when we speak, we are speaking for the ShareTrack HIV channel because you have been very focused on motivating HIV patients across the globe, and many of them know you by name because of the work that you have done through American Gene Technologies and your therapy called AGT 103-T. However, many people in that segment do not understand that AGT is not just HIV, but it has got other assets like in phenylketonuria, and then you got IP, intellectual property of various kinds, which add value to the company. So today I thought I would give our investment channel an overview of what you're doing, an introduction to American Gene Technology. So Jeff, can you briefly give our audience an idea of who you are, where you come from, and what is AGT?
Sure. So yeah, a lot of people know us because of the HIV project, because that is our clinical development, and we have a tremendous amount of data and some peer-reviewed journal articles that are out there. Anybody that wants to look up AGT 103-T can see some data that's published on that that shows that it's got significant momentum towards a functional cure. And that is the goal of that project. But the goal of AGT was much broader. I come out of the computer industry, and when I saw gene and cell therapy, what struck me about gene and cell therapy is it's very much like software. That when you put a gene into DNA, the result is very predictable and it's very consistent. And if you look at DNA, you can almost think of that as the operating system of the cell, like the cell is an organic computer that's creating proteins and enzymes that, sort of interact with other cells. But when you change that DNA, you can fix things that are missing, you can improve things that are there, you can even give cells new features. And this was a vision that I had in 2008 when I founded AGT. And so my desire was to create middleware, sort of like a whole platform of components that you could mix and match to form the foundation of new applications on top of it, because I saw that there were a lot of things that would be in common across many different solutions, healthcare solutions that would come out of gene and cell therapy. Because now that we can reprogram DNA, I think that there's almost nothing we can't do. The gene and cell therapy will give us the potential of curing about 10,000 diseases which plague humanity. Now, this won't happen overnight, but long term, it's like the software industry. We're going to just keep getting more and more applications that keep improving our lives, but instead of in a digital way and communications and entertainment and stuff like that, it's going to be in health. And you can see it's happening already. I mean, in 2008, it was just a vision. But now there's a cure for a couple of forms of blindness. There's a cure for deafness out there. There's a cure for a crippling disease called spinal muscular atrophy, where kids born with, one gene missing never had a life. They died in ventilators at age 4 after never having crawled, rolled over. They died because they couldn't breathe on their own, and they were just missing one gene. But the whole concept behind gene therapy and cell therapy allowed a company to come up with something that repaired that gene when they were diagnosed, and now those kids are running around and having normal lives. So that is the kind of miracles that can come out of this new science, and that was the target of AGT. Now, we have components that basically allow us to deliver therapeutic levels of any gene to any cell, and that is the fundamental, sort of platform that we work on. But then we have other components that are useful in chronic viral infections like HIV. Or in immuno-oncology, we have a whole bunch of patents and a whole bunch of techniques to light up cancer cells so that the natural immune system, without any modification, will chase after those cancer cells and eliminate them with surgical precision. Okay, that's the amazing thing about your immune system, is that it can kill an infected cell or a cancerous cell and do no harm to the surrounding cells, right? Because your immune system is really designed to be that, ultimate protector of the body. But in the case of cancer, cancer can get ahead of that immune system. Well, we found ways to stimulate that immune system by lighting up the cancer. We also have, the ability to create solutions that deliver genes to the liver that are missing, like in phenylketonuria. And phenylketonuria is a devastating disease where kids that are born without one gene in the liver can't metabolize phenylalanine, and this causes tremendous havoc in their life up through their teen years. But ultimately, because they can't process phenylalanine, they end up with depression, schizophrenia, and even suicidal thoughts. So one gene missing can be very, very serious, like in spinal muscular atrophy, where people never actually form a normal spine and muscles around the spine, and therefore die at a very young age, having had no normal movement, to phenylalanine that could take 40 years till people, about a third of people that have phenylketonuria will end up committing suicide by age 40, and it's devastating disease. So that is what AGT has. We have over 50 patents that are components that you can mix and match. And, there's dozens or even hundreds of diseases that we could address right now. And, a success in HIV would give credibility to that whole platform. And it would give us an entree into, going full speed on cancer. And we have a remarkable set of components there that look like they could completely change outcomes in some of the most serious cancers that are called epithelial cancers: breast, prostate, lung, liver, colon, kidney, ovarian, pancreatic, head and neck, and skin cancers are all in this one category, where we've learned to light up those cancers and get the gamma delta T cells that surveil them in this really active state where they can eliminate whole tumors. So that's could be our second act, once we finish out this HIV project.
Yeah, it seems very interesting, the spread of the IP assets and the potential targets that are there. So basically, most of the biotech companies that we are looking at, they have a pipeline, and they have some monetized products, and the patents are coming to an end. So they keep on growing the pipeline, and turn by turn, they come up with monetized products, and that's how it happens. But for a new company, which is a private company, which has started up, you have to focus on one thing. And I think that one thing you have chosen to focus was HIV. And you have developed other assets in your pipeline, which can be the next target, as you said. As soon as you knock out the HIV off the park and come up with a solution, then you can focus on the others. So that's understandable, because these days, having a lot of resources is important in order to have multiple programs going on simultaneously, engaging with the FDA, doing the clinical trials. It's a onerous task. So your prime focus being HIV, I think we have made some headway out there. So that brings us to a very interesting question that most of our audience would have. So why is Raj interviewing Jeff today? Why not interview him maybe 6 months ago? So what is it that prompts us for this interview? That's the question our audience would have, and I would allow you the pleasure of explaining that, Jeff.
Well, some of your audience may be aware that biotech has had a rough couple of years. And, this does happen from time to time, and biotech may have been oversold back in 21 and 22, right? And what happened was biotech valuations, just went up to very high levels. It was very easy to fund companies. There were a lot of companies that had very immature products. So what we've seen is a bit of a weeding out over the last couple of years of a lot of we've seen a lot of failures of very early stage projects that didn't necessarily justify the level of investment that was being made in them, and we suffered the same way. So 2023 and 2024 have been horrible for AGT in terms of raising money, but now we're seeing it come back, and I think that it really says something about the company that we had enough assets that as biotech is reemerging from this slump, we stand out. And so we're starting to see some significant interest in funding, and it looks very positive in terms of our ability to do the next stage on HIV and to monetize that project because it's that close, right? And so so that's the first reason is that, 6 months ago, we were dealing with, just a cash crunch. We were at a very, very low state of activity, really not moving things forward in any substantial way. But there was one exception. We had blood samples from our clinical trials that we hadn't processed yet, and we were developing a new assay which could show us the amount of intact virus within the CD4 cells. This is called circulating viral reservoir. In other words, if somebody is living with HIV, they actually have a very high percentage, about 10% of their circulating CD4 cells actually have intact copies of HIV integrated into their DNA. This is called a viral reservoir because those are basically viral factories. And you would think, well, wait a minute, they're taking drugs every day to suppress the virus, so it doesn't eliminate that? And the answer is no, it does not eliminate that. And that is one of the most insidious things about HIV is that as soon as they go off their suppressive medication, those viral factories produce a ton of HIV and their viral loads spike and they start progressing towards AIDS right away again.
And then they create new reservoirs. They spread the reservoir further.
That's right. It increases the reservoirs.
Yeah.
And so, that attacking those reservoirs is a very important aspect to a final solution, an actually effective functional cure to HIV, where you could make a one-time treatment and then have them suppress their own virus for life. The theory behind our HIV project is to harden those CD4 cells so that HIV can't get into them, right? And they can do their job fighting HIV. But one of the things they're going to have to fight is those integrated copies of HIV that are already in the body. They're going to have to bring those things down. And there's never been a study, as far as I can tell, and I'd invite your viewers to search the internet for any project that has substantially reduced the viral reservoirs in humans. We see it all the time in mice, but the H in HIV stands for human. It hides in places in humans that mice do not even have. And so that is a critical element, and it's never been done before. But now we've seen very strong evidence that we're bringing down the circulating viral reservoir. So all of those infected CD4 cells are being intact by our cells and the cells that they are controlling. The HIV CD8 cells are attacking this circulating viral reservoir and bringing it down to zero or near zero in every single patient in the clinical study. Okay, that is just eye-popping. And at this point, we have enough data to say that we're pretty confident that we're doing a great job on the circulating viral reservoir. And this next clinical study will examine not just that and get more statistical data on that, but we'll start getting measurements of the tissue resident viral reservoir. And there's a good reason to believe that we're probably bringing that down substantially as well. Okay, that is a fundamental element of getting to a cure that we haven't seen from anybody else, from any other project. We've already got a lead in viral suppression. We've got a lead in safety, we've shown. We've got a lead in, sort of sustained lowering of set points with HIV. All of these things add up and give us confidence that with another clinical trial, we'll be able to show this to the treatment companies and they'll understand that a cure is really possible, that it might be literally right in front of their eyes, and that will motivate them to bring it to the public, including, a liquidity event for our shareholders. So, because we've got a dual purpose, obviously, as a biotech company, not just to solve a problem, but to get a return for all the people that have believed in this project.
That is true. And I think one of the more remarkable things that I saw from your data was also the fact that the blood samples that you have recently, which you have examined, they come from the clinical trial patients who probably had an infusion almost 3 years ago. And then they were on ART, which means that antiretroviral therapy was suppressing all their viruses. So despite the fact that the AGT cells that you created, CD4 cells that you created and put in their body, not encountering as many virions as they need in order to stay viable, they still survived. And when you did an analytical treatment interruption later on, they started multiplying, they started cloning, they started commanding CD8 T cells, and started showing their effect. And of course, then you have also found out about the diminishing reservoir. All of this put together makes a compelling argument that now probably is the time for American Gene Technologies to step into the limelight. And I think that justifies coming in here right now and making this video out here to inform everyone about where we have reached so far and how we plan to go towards monetization of this therapy. So that said, Jeff, you are still a private company, right? So I'm thinking that as a private company, you still have some regulations that you have to follow. So probably it's accredited investors or sophisticated investors who understand how to evaluate risk and whom various, I'm in Canada out here, and maybe Canadian authorities and maybe somebody watching from Japan or Europe or India or somewhere, all of those authorities whom they consider those kind of investors to be sophisticated can definitely, I suppose, approach you through your website and get in touch with Dr. Barry or somebody who is in your investment department. And if they are interested in getting in at the ground floor, I suppose.
Yeah, so we cannot do general solicitation. So let me just, disclaim that right now. We're not asking people on this channel for investment.
Yeah.
The rules are that we can talk to anybody that is an accredited investor, and if somebody doesn't know what an accredited investor is, they can just look it up on Google.
Google it.
But it's even looser when you get outside of the United States, because these are actually state laws and SEC laws that say that private companies need to interact with folks like that, but they don't. SEC doesn't have, sort of international responsibilities. But, look at there may be local laws that impact this. But I think a general bar is if you meet accredited investors and that you call us, we can talk to you. And we've raised, this is kind of remarkable, but over the last 10 years, we've raised $85 million from accredited investors, and that's how we got to this data. And, now we have line of sight, and I think we have a good shot on goal to monetize the HIV asset, but then, move on to some of these other assets. Of course, cancer is even bigger than HIV. HIV is huge market when you think about that nearly 40 million people are living with HIV globally. But even if you just take Western markets, there's about 5 million people that are living with HIV, and it would be cheaper to cure them of HIV than to treat them for life. So the healthcare systems would save money, but this would be a $5 trillion market. Now think about that. HIV treatment is about $40 billion a year right now, or a little bit less than that. Okay, well, how many times can you fit 40 billion into 5 trillion? So the HIV market actually is going to go up for some period of time, right? And at the same time, giving much better quality of life to people that are living with HIV, because a cure would be much better than having to take constant treatment for life, and even some of the side effects that come with that chronic viremia and side effects of the suppressive medication. So it's good for the patients. It's good for the healthcare system because they're spending approximately $1.7 million per patient in Western countries to suppress them for life. That's direct healthcare costs. Even if this solution was as expensive as $1 million, they'd still be saving money.
Yes.
But $1 million today for, say, a Gilead that might distribute this product, or a Vive or whatever, and they're not saying that they will, but if the cure comes and a major pharma company distributes this to those Western markets, then what would happen is that there would be cost savings with that improvement in the quality of life for the people that are living with HIV. And then there'd be societal savings, because once somebody's cured, they're non-infectious for life. So you don't have to worry about them missing some medication and accidentally infecting somebody, or not being good about taking their medication. So this is a win-win-win all the way around. That's what we're aiming for in terms of what we want to deliver with a functional cure. And we just think that it goes out into a very positive environment if we can show that data. And then this recent data is really eye-popping, because the viral reservoir is really the fundamentally most difficult part of HIV. And we just showed some tremendous data that says that we're able to attack and reduce that viral reservoir really by up to 99.98%, or more than that, actually. All the patients were below that
Yeah. If I
level.
recollect, it was at 0.004%.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's where we were. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most of the viral reservoir from the tests that we did, from the blood samples that we had from the phase 1 and the analytical treatment interruption, and as you said, this was data that we accrued over more than 2 years. That's how long these folks were in the trial. So we've showed that this effect is durable, but right out to the end of that, most of them are showing undetectably low circulating viral reservoir. In other words, this very sensitive digital PCR test that literally takes 8,000 cells from their body and can individually inspect every single cell to see whether it has an intact copy of HIV, was unable to detect any in most of the samples. So that is a really great, sort of sign that we're on track. Doesn't, I never want to say in biotech that you can guarantee any outcome,
Right.
but this is exceedingly good news on the road to something that is huge. And, I feel very uplifted, and very enthusiastic. And, given this data that we recently have been able to gather. So the next clinical trial, we're starting to see some good interest in the US amongst some substantial check writers to support this project. We have an investment bank. You can look them up. It's Raj, if you don't mind, maybe you can just put them right in the comment section. It's called Merit Advisory and Merit Healthcare Advisors. You can find them online, but they're looking to raise us 60 million from funds. But in the meantime, we're raising a bridge round of it looks like we should have about 5 million by the end of January. That allows us to kick off the next clinical trial, and we have a commitment already from a large healthcare provider for 15 million in 2025. Well, those two things together give us really good assurances that we can get the next clinical trial done and we can show more of this data in a statistical way. And that could be the stepping stone to an acquisition of this project and return on the investment and a return on all of our hard work over the last 10 years.
Yes, Jeff. So actually, in our channel, what we have been doing is we have a bunch of genomic stocks that we track on a regular basis. And there are many companies which don't have a monetized product, and they're all in the process of going through clinical trials, and the share price has dropped significantly. And we are still interested in many of those companies. Our audience is interested. I am also invested in some of them. And the reason why I thought that you should come in here and talk to our audience is also because of the fact that if they knew that you had this quality of candidate in your pipeline, right? That is something that would be a good thing for the audience to know. What they do with that information is a different issue altogether, because we don't do financial advice, but bringing that information across is, I think, very important, so that people who are genuinely interested can then reach out and do whatever they need to do in order to progress their own ideas. So
Yeah.
from that point of view, the only difference between American Gene Technologies and some of the companies that we have in our checklist or shortlist is that you're not in the stock exchange and they are in the stock exchange. And because they are in the stock exchange, we continuously see information about them, and the trading is going on an ongoing basis.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why I think this channel has got to bring companies which are in their pre-IPO stage, who are building a lot of intellectual capital, so that we give our audience an opportunity to have a look at those which they may otherwise not be able to identify or even
Interesting.
imagine to be available.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
No, I think you could, there is a difference between being a public stock and being a private stock, and that's something to consider when people make investments. But also, if you look at our clinical data and you compare that to public stocks, what you see is that we have a tremendous level of efficacy signal, and it gives you some sense of where this could be in terms of, if it achieves that liquidity point. And so, it can sometimes be the kind of bet that an investor wants to have in their portfolio along with public stocks.
yes,
A general diversification strategy. This
yes,
may be, one of those things where it could have a very high multiple. It may have a concomitant risk that comes with being private, right? But at the same time, there may be enough signs there that it could be intriguing to some of the folks that
exactly.
follow your channel and follow some of those other stocks. But yeah, I think gene and cell therapy is the future. So you will always find me as an advocate for anything that shows that it's working.
Yes,
Okay. And, because there will be a deluge of solutions in the future. We hope to license in or, be the platform where many of these things can be developed. That's why we focused on this, what we call middleware, right? These components that can be mixed and matched to make foundations for these apps. And these apps can be as easy to write as apps on an iPhone one day.
right.
It's more complicated now, but we're putting in all the support, that allow people to do that on our platform. So, the future of gene and cell therapy is, I think, exceedingly bright. I think we will, step one, the industry. I'm not just talking about AGT right now. We hope to be the Microsoft of this, but that is yet to be seen. But the industry is going to cure 10,000 diseases. They're going to extend life by getting rid of so many things that kill us. And this is happening already, right? CAR-Ts are bringing hope to people that would have died from acute myeloid leukemias or lymphoid leukemias. And and this is a miracle level stuff in the places where there have been solutions so far. But this is really the drip, drip, drip of the initial power of this new software for your body. So we'll eliminate all 10,000 things. Then we can start looking at the fountain of youth, okay? Because it will be possible to extend life that way with gene and cell therapy. And then one day we will literally control our evolution, which may be important to stay ahead of, all the technologies that we're creating. We may literally be able to steer. It sounds dystopic in a way, right? And I'm talking about something that's 100 years off. So don't worry if you're watching this that, we're making a superhuman being in the back room here. We're not. But one day, that's what gene and cell therapy will open up. We can improve humankind and we can direct our evolution. And that's, that shows you what a future there is for this software industry. And we haven't even seen the last software industry peak out yet. It's still going,
Right.
right?
Right. And just to clarify to the audience, the concept, Jeff, you're talking about, it basically is that just like in the software industry, you have a middleware and people can deploy the middleware and put anything on top of it so that it can speak to anything below it without having to worry about stuff. So the
Right,
same way, I think you have created intellectual properties which form components of any therapy, cell or gene therapy that could be created to target any diseases. So
right.
once you have certified all these things, all these components, then anyone who is trying to address a particular condition or a disease has got to focus only on that area. As far as delivery is concerned and other things, they're already certified. So you don't have to redo all the clinical trial for those components. They are readily available. So the work and expenditure, everything is focused only on a particular disease target or whatever they are working on. So that's how you become a middleware kind of a person. That's the way
Yeah.
I understand your architecture.
You explain it beautifully. I mean, you're hired. You should be working in our marketing department. So, yeah, everybody, Raj did a great description of this. It's about efficiency,
Yes.
right? Why did you develop your app on an iPhone or an Android instead of starting from scratch, right? Because all of the common elements are already in there. That's what we are focused on. And middleware, in our case, is between delivery vectors like viruses or liquid nanoparticles or whatever, and these creative elements where really what you need is expertise in the disease to decide what genes need to be changed where. And it might be right in our toolkit, right in that
Right.
middleware, where you could get to that outcome. You could be doing your phase 1 clinical trial and getting efficacy data in 2 years, spending $10 million instead of 5 years spending $250 million, right? Efficiency is what it's all about. If Microsoft was run like a drug company, Excel would cost $20,000 or $50,000 a year. Okay. And it wouldn't be getting innovated every single day, right? That's the point, is now that we can look at the body as almost being deterministic. We can look at your body as being trillions of cells that are collaborating on a giant network that's electrical, chemical, and physical, right? You have the most complex network in the world within you. And you have all these cells that are like cubicles in your corporate body, right? That each have their own job, but the instruction manual is almost the same for every single one of them. But each one of the managers in that cube knows what their job is. They carry it out, they collaborate with the rest of the cells in your body, and that makes you. Well, now we can go into that instruction manual that they're all reading and we can fix it, we can improve it. And your description of the middleware is really perfect. Once we have reliable elements, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Once we cure HIV, it'll be, relatively easy to reapply all those same components and cure other chronic viral infections like HTLV. Or maybe, the other thing that's happening in this industry that's really similar to software is the costs are dropping like a rock, right? So this stuff that's only, viable in Western nations now will eventually be cheap enough that we can have it for everybody in the world. Look at how cell phones have expanded. These are supercomputers from the 1970s in the pockets of people in African nations. Well, they'll also have shots in the arm that cure their HIV and cure their cancers. And, this is a global revolution, a technology that will scale very much like computers and that will follow cost curves very much like computers and will eventually touch every person on earth. But right now, wow, in Canada, in the United States, we have access to that stuff today, and it's
Yeah.
happening.
So it's an amazing world that we are getting into. And Jeff, I really like to thank you for sparing some time, investing some time, coming to our channel and having this open discussion with us and giving us an insight into where AGT has reached so far. And I hope our audience has liked this, and I'll invite our audience to put their questions in the comment section. If you have any specific questions about anything, please put it in the comment section, and I'll check and see how I can get back to you after getting in touch with Jeff.
Yeah.
And Jeff, all the very best for you. And we hope to hear more from you in the near future, or maybe someday we'll see you on the stock exchange.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the program, Raj. As always, it's a pleasure. And if we have any more news, I will reach out to you, and I'd love to stay in touch and see you again sometime soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was nice.